Welcome to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Marathon Mallett.
Well, hello, Michelle.
Hello, Steve. I'm surprised you're here in the office.
I'm sitting here feeling like somebody took a baseball bat to my quads for like 10 minutes.
Why is that? Because my body feeling tired is different than your body feeling tired.
I would say
What did you do?
I ran a marathon in Irving, Texas on Saturday on an all-concrete course in the heat, and I am baked.
I stood for 6 hours front row on the floor at CMT.
Different kind of marathon. Different kind of marathon.
Yeah, I was right up there.
It sounds like fun, though. Holly and I went up and did the Irving Marathon on Saturday, and it's a fun course. I don't think I'll ever do it again because concrete is the hardest surface to run on your body, and you saw me, I'm peg-legged today.
Yeah.
I can hardly bend my knees.
So is standing. Standing that long is really, really hard.
Hard on your back.
Yeah. Oh, so my claim to fame yesterday was Travis Kelce, the Super Bowl winner, stepped on my foot. I was actually on my way to the bathroom.
That sounds painful.
Yeah. But then I just kind of stood there and just smelled him.
Oh, God, jeez.
He's a pretty man.
Well, good for him. Good for him. Hey, I got a couple small things real quick. Costco's opening a store in Hays County.
Yeah, I knew that in Kyle.
In Kyle, right off the freeway in Kyle. So I don't know. I didn't read when they're supposed to be open, but they're working on that already.
I think it's May-ish. I think
of this year.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
I think so. I think because my friends live right by there, so I think it's May.
Holly and I were talking, and I think we'll probably make that our home store instead of going to the one in Sunset Valley because just getting in and out of there is just a nightmare, and the drive back.
Okay, I'll see how that goes.
Oh, why is that?
It's just a different Costco. It's a different experience. Like going to Costco in LA versus Costco in Austin.
I've never been to Costco in LA. Can you go to Costco in LA?
I did. I had to use the bathroom one time by Venice Beach, and there was a big Costco there, and it's a
clean bathroom.
Well, I thought that it was Armageddon had hit because everybody, I think, from LA was there that day shopping.
Oh, I think when we were coming back from Irving, we stopped at Buc-ee's, and everybody from LA is in Buc-ee's right now.
Have you noticed when you're shopping in Costco now, there's a lot more like international foods too? There was the other day, there were these cookies that they're called yolk cookies, and they look like eggs. And I think there's an egg yolk in the middle of these cookies. It sounds awful.
It does sound awful.
And then they had all these little fishies, I don't know. Yeah, it was interesting.
If they don't sell, they won't bring them back.
True.
And then the other thing I read real quick was Hays County is the 6th fastest growing county in Texas. So we forgot our guest. I'm very excited about Anthony Hipolito, who's running for sheriff.
Yes.
He's currently a sheriff's deputy, right?
He is a sheriff's deputy. Yeah, he comes from Austin PD also, but you probably see him all over. He's currently a Hays County deputy, but you see him everywhere with the fentanyl awareness.
Oh, that's right. He does the fentanyl awareness. And so he's running for sheriff of the 6th fastest growing county in Texas.
This is going to be interesting to see how we deal with the challenges. Because we are growing.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges coming.
Yeah.
That we didn't have before as we grow the way we have. There's a new bill being passed around the Texas legislature to cut your property taxes.
I saw that. Was Carrie Isaac one of the authors of that?
I think she helped write it. Yeah. The two people the one that's in the Senate, Paul Betancourt and Tan Parker, who are both from the Houston area, mostly wrote this one or sponsored it. It's a $16.5 billion property tax relief bill that passed through the Senate. Now it's going to the Texas House. And the Texas House is actually working on their own bill, but it would increase the homestead.
Really?
The deduction for your homestead.
Which is like what now? Do you know what it is?
It's $25,000 now.
Okay.
It might be $50,000.
Okay.
It would also change how they do the what do you call that when they take the
Robin Hood?
The Robin Hood tax.
The school tax?
Yeah, but they call it something else. Can't remember what they call it, but they're going to change how they do that. And so that $16.5 billion. I don't know what it works out to per taxpayer, but it could save us all a lot of money. And they're running a $32 billion surplus right now. So it cracks me up how politicians because, there's a bunch of politicians on the other side saying, like one guy says, we need to focus that money on the people we need to focus that money where the people need it most, which is, I need you to send that money to the people that keep me in office. It's not about doing anything for the people that are paying the taxes.
I tell you what, I saw clips of an interview yesterday that was done on 60 Minutes with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she said a line. No, she irks me in a lot of ways, but she said a line that I thought was just gold. And she said, "I don't remember Ukraine being the 51st state of the United States, and we need to take care of our own people." And that's exactly with all of this defund the police and having Anthony on the school.
We're going to talk a lot about that.
So you're right. I think we need to take care of our own. I think it's a good thing what Texas is doing. So
Agreed.
Give some of the money back to us.
Yeah, it's school district recapture is what we're talking about.
School district. I've always known it as the Robin Hood plan.
It's where an affluent school district collects more taxes and then sends it to a less affluent school district where they don't have the tax base, which kind of makes sense on some level, but then,
not when your own school is still struggling.
Right. But so now it goes to the House, and the House is actually working on its own bill, which would cut the tax rate by 0.15 per $100 valuation, and prevent the property tax values from raising more than 5% per year from the current 10%.
Is that even, that's just homestead exemption, right? That's not people like you that have investment properties and stuff.
Yeah, there's no cap on commercial properties. Well, I don't know. Maybe there will be. There should be. I mean, sometimes the commercial property tax rates go up so much, or not the rates, the values go up so much that you can't afford the taxes anymore. I had to sell a property because I couldn't afford, the rent wasn't covering the taxes anymore.
You know what? I think it would be cool to get Carrie in here at some point and maybe explain it.
If you're listening,
come on,
we want to get you on the show.
Yeah.
So what do you got?
So one of the things that happened to me this weekend, aside from driving to Dallas and turn around and come back and then going to an award show, was I got banned on Facebook this weekend.
No.
Yes, I did.
Did you really?
And it was the second time it happened. And the first time was because Annie, my assistant that we have, she's our house manager for our Airbnbs. I said in a Facebook post at one point I was going to fight her. And so they banned me.
You got banned, you bully.
Well, that was a couple months ago. So they said that I was, inciting violence. And this one was because my accountant said, I just don't know how long I'm going to do this. I'm tired of this, and I'm going to scale my business down. And I said, if you fire me, I'm going to find you and choke you out. So again, I'm inside.
You're so violent.
I am
Michelle.
pretty violent. So I got, my Facebook was banned it was 24 hours. So I think if I get
that's the one that you just did recently, you're going to choke him out and they banned you from Facebook?
Yeah, I think, and I appealed it just because I think it's funny. Yeah. But I think if I get like a couple more, then they will ban my account. I don't know. Whatever. But along with that.
Yeah, that reminds me of this. I know you're going to talk about it, but this thing going through Congress, the what do they call it? The Restrict Bill?
It's the Restrict Act. It's Senate Bill 686. And, people are calling it the TikTok ban. You know me, when I say I've done research, I've basically watched a 30-minute clip on TikTok. Yeah. But it's proposed legislation in the Senate. They proposed it last month. The stated purpose is to limit national security risk by allowing the Department of Congress to review, block, mitigate transactions involving foreign info and communications that pose a risk. So who determines the risk? Well, of course, it's the good old government. Executive branch fact checkers. It's easier for the U.S. government to ban or force the sale of specific software or equipment from certain countries. I don't understand the whole thing about the VPN. The virtual private network, and the VPN basically establishes a secure connection for you to use the internet. Apparently you can, if they ban TikTok, you can use these VPNs, you can go around that, and it'll change your country.
Apparently if they ban what I was reading the other day, if they ban TikTok and you and all these young creative kids figure out a way to get on TikTok and you use, I guess, a certain VPN to
there's
access.
fines. There's crazy
it's
amount
like $25,000 and 2 years in jail.
There's crazy amount of fines that they can.
The thing that bothers me the most is what they cite that TikTok is doing is exactly what Facebook and Instagram are doing.
Absolutely.
It's exactly what they know where you're at. A conversation you and I have. If I say J. Crew. When I get home tonight and I look on my Instagram, I'm going to have J. Crew ads in my Instagram feed. They are doing the exact same thing that TikTok's doing.
Mark Warner is one of the leaders of this bill. He said that the punishments in the bill would not be used against, quote, ordinary citizens.
But the government always says that.
So TikTok traditionally, now granted, if TikTok goes away, I think that, just like supply and demand, another company is going to pop up very similar to TikTok or whatever, or people will figure out how to get around it. But TikTok was created as a platform for free expression, right? And a lot of times it was dance videos at the beginning and then that cold water challenge that people used to do. Critics and mostly Congress says it was created as a data stealing platform. Well, we talk about
like Facebook and Instagram,
but it's
probably Twitter.
It's very much algorithm based. There was a hearing
like
on
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
And if they're saying that every time they get on, they're seeing, hot girls on trampolines, well, it's algorithm based. Mm-hmm. So if you pause
on a hot girl on trampoline video,
it's going to show you more trampolines.
It will continue to show.
You're exactly right.
I stopped on one the other day that showed some cat doing something, and now my Instagram feed is filled with cats, and I don't like cats.
That's funny. Mine are monkey videos. I've talked about this before.
Yeah, but that's because you actually search monkey videos.
I search
cute monkey videos.
I know that there's issues with TikTok. I know that there are.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Just like with Facebook, people can go. There was somebody that went Facebook Live and went on a shooting spree. Okay. I know that there's inappropriate content for kids, but isn't it our jobs as parents to monitor what our children are exposed to, or at least have a dialogue with our kids of what they are watching and what is, that's my big thing. And then like when we were kids, what did we have? We had Faces of Death on VHS. I remember watching Faces of Death.
I never watched that. I was scared to watch it.
I had a boyfriend.
Not because I was scared. It was like there are certain things that you see and you can't unsee them, and I didn't want to unsee. I know. I didn't want to see something that I could never get out of my head.
I'm sick. I'm sick. So I also watched Dr. Pimple Popper.
Did you pause at the little VHS parts? Like, what is that?
Yeah, back then you could be kind, blurry rewind. Screen. But it's also like, I think, blaming porn for becoming a sex addict. Right. And no one wants to take personal responsibility anymore for anything they do. I've said this time and time again, I feel like we have normalized mental health issues instead of these people getting real, actual therapy, counseling. And I think that, quite honestly, our government, Congress, needs to focus on school violence, the fentanyl crisis, the border issues. There's a whole list of things I think that we need to do.
Did you say school safety?
I said school safety, school violence. But I think that TikTok, in a sense, now, granted, I know there's issues. Okay, I'm not denying the fact, but I think TikTok has become kind of the modern alarm clock for Americans, and we're waking up to things that we wouldn't necessarily have exposure to, and our media and, quote, fact checkers kind of shelter us and suppress us from.
Oh, I agree.
And so
they're picking and choosing what you can see and what you can believe.
Yeah, and I just I think it's a dangerous path that we go on, because if we start suppressing and monitoring this stuff, imagine the free speech that is going to be limited.
Free speech is actually dying in this country and being supported, and that death is being supported by a large percentage of the population. And I think that one of the main reasons for the death of free speech and the death of a lot of freedoms. I was reading an article the other day about, I'm going off on a tangent, but electric cars, manufacturers in the U.S. like Ford is investing billions and billions of dollars in electric cars because the government has mandated that they sell these electric cars. That's called socialism.
Yeah, well,
when the government controls the manufacturers, that's called socialism. And we're just marching down that road. But anyway, I think social media is one of the biggest things that's destroying this country. And there's an article in the Wall Street Journal about.
But I like social media.
Well, I like social media, but not the way it's designed.
I like monkey videos.
Do you remember when Facebook was new?
Yeah.
You'd get on Facebook and you'd go, oh, here's 10 new posts. Oh, look, Michelle went to Costco and got these little cookies that look like eggs and they're gross. Yes. Okay, and we laugh. And now it's all this stuff that I don't really necessarily want to see, but it's what Facebook thinks
when
I
want
want
to see. When I tell my
see.
accountant I want to choke them out, they restrict me.
And
I'm joking.
And your accountant knows you and knows that that's a joke.
Yeah, that I'm
but
a smart
Facebook
aleck.
doesn't.
Yeah.
So there's this article in the Wall Street Journal about changing priorities in the country. And there's some pretty alarming things that have changed since 1998 in this country. Only 23% of the people under 30 taken in this last poll, which was just done recently, said they are patriotic. 23% of the people under 30 say that they're proud to be an American. There were declines in people that put religious faith as a priority, declines in people having children as a priority, big declines, not like 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
A huge decline in the priority of community involvement, meaning less people think that being involved in and supporting your local community is important. And I don't have all the percentages, but it was significant. The only one that increased as a priority, money.
Oh.
31% of people in 1998 said money was a high priority for them. And this year, it's 48% said that money is a high priority. That's from social media. That's from people saying, oh, look, I could have a car like that. Oh, look, I could have a house like that. And then now they're not involved in their community because they're out hustling.
Well, it's because most of these socialistic ideas are other people's money. And I saw this thing on TikTok. It was kind of funny. It was a protest for the refugees. And this guy with a clipboard walked around and said, so I'm here to sign up people to host refugees. And they're like, oh, that's a great idea. But, I don't have any room in my house. Every single person, now granted, I'm sure there were people that said they would do it, but this was just what they showed. Every single person that he showed, the excuse was, oh, I don't have any money right now. I don't have room.
Have the room.
So he was like, so what are you protesting?
My dog is vicious.
Yeah. So everybody else takes care of them, but you.
That's right.
So you need, and I don't understand that, Steve. It's like,
it is putting a Ukraine sticker on your car and feeling good about yourself and doing absolutely nothing else about it.
I'm a solution-based person. Like if I identify a project, and I've always said this about you as well. It's like, I don't come to you with a problem. I come to you with the problem with the solution attached to the end of it. And, just kind of get to our next guest, Anthony. I think that that's what he's doing. I think he's a solution-based guy. I think he's going around. He's putting his mouth where his money is, or his money where his mouth is.
Where his mouth is.
And he's hitting the pavement.
Yeah. I got a couple more things real quick, and then we're going to get Anthony in here. So 63% of the people polled said that companies shouldn't take stands on social and political issues. I thought that was interesting. 36% said that they should. So it's 2-1.
No, I agree. I think celebrities, artists, companies, I think they need to shut their mouth.
I agree. I just want to eat my cornflakes. Please, just leave me alone. I don't need to know what you believe on all these other social
Dribble
issues.
a ball,
yes,
make a touchdown, and sing me a dang song.
Yep. 50% don't like having people impose using pronouns, meaning you can have all the pronouns you want, but you can't impose them on me that I'm supposed to be able to figure out what your pronouns are today. 18% say that I should be able to impose my pronouns on you.
I'm not going to have an opinion on that because I'll be canceled again.
Yeah, I know. 30% of people under age 30 thought that you should be able to impose your pronouns, and 9% of people over 65 thought that you should. So that's an interesting, which is kind of what you'd expect. Only 21% of Americans polled think that America is exceptional. How sad is that?
Yeah, well.
50% said it's one of the best, and 27%, up from 19% in 1998, said that there are better countries. So more than 1 in 4 people in this country think that we're not a great place to live. Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Get out.
So
anyway,
it's interesting. This country's changing. We're watching it change.
On that note, I think that we found the perfect clip to kind of end that, and then we'll have
this
Anthony.
And get Anthony in here. So hang on, sit tight. We'll be right back.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallett Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at mallettintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
All right, we're back with Anthony Hipolito, who is running for Hays County Sheriff. Welcome to the show.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, we met you a year or so ago. You were doing some presentation about crime and fentanyl and crime in Hays County, and we learned a lot about that. So we're glad you're here. And we've got some locals that have asked questions, which we'll get to. But let's talk a little bit about you and your background. How'd you end up in Hays County?
Yeah, I moved to Hays County from South Austin in 1985. So I've been here for the most part since then. While I was in the police academy in Austin, I moved to Austin for a couple of years, but I quickly came back to Hays County. So essentially since 1985.
Okay. Have you always been in law enforcement?
I have. I grew up in law enforcement. My dad spent 30 years at the Austin Police Department. So I grew up.
Oh, wow.
And that's
in your blood.
That's in my blood.
And
right?
your brother as well, right?
That's right. My brother is a deputy here at Hays County as well. I've got 3 cousins that are deputies over in Travis County. So it's a family thing, right?
Yeah,
So
that's very cool.
Yep.
Were you a hall monitor in school?
That's great.
Did you give tickets to kids? I probably, if you and I went to school together, I'd probably always be getting tickets from you from talking too much in class.
I'm sure you would. Let me take you down to the principal's office.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And so when did you become a sheriff's deputy?
I came out here to the Hays County Sheriff's Office in September of 2021.
2021. Yeah. Okay. All right. And now you're running for Hays County Sheriff.
I am.
Replacing Gary Cutler.
Yes. And I'm he's going to retire at the end of his term. Mm-hmm. That'll be 50 years in law enforcement.
Wow.
That's amazing. And I'm very, very fortunate and blessed to have Sheriff Cutler's endorsement in this race. He's fully supporting my campaign, and I've known his family for many, many years, and they're pillars of Hays County. And they're amazing guy. People, and so it's amazing to have his support. That's huge.
Yeah, huge. Why do you want to be the Hays County Sheriff?
That's a great question, right? Everybody's like, "Are you crazy? Do you really
want
to jump into this?" But at the end of the day, I love cops. I've been a cop for 24 years, and like I mentioned, my dad was an officer, and I can remember at 4 years old pinning on his badge. I say I remember. There's a picture of me pinning on his badge with my mom in 1979, and there's also a picture of me graduating in 1998 with him pinning my badge on. So
very cool.
I grew up running around the Austin Police Department. So I've always idolized cops. I've always looked up to cops. And so they need somebody that will work for them, right? Not only we have to answer to the community as a sheriff, right? We have to answer to the commissioner's court. But at the end of the day, the folks that do the work and that I'm going to work for are the deputies that are out here each and every day fighting crime on the streets of Hays County. And I want to be an advocate for them, right? And they deserve someone who's going to do that, and I'm that guy. So
it's probably more important than ever for somebody to have police officers' backs, because it seems like there's just all kinds of things.
Oh, absolutely. I think that Steve and I were talking earlier. I think that society now really kind of celebrates the bad guys, celebrates the criminals, social media, just like where people are filming everything, and it's always kind of a gotcha thing. How do you flip the narrative that the media is kind of force-fed us that the police are the bad guys? We're defunding the police. We're talking about putting counselors in for DV cases or domestic violence cases instead of actual officers. How are you going to spearhead that if you are sheriff and flip that narrative to the community of Hays County?
I think at the end of the day, the community of Hays County loves and support our law enforcement officers, not just the sheriff's office. We have Buda PD, Kyle PD, San Marcos PD. There's a variety of law enforcement agencies in this county. and the community as a whole respects us immensely. You have to have that trust. You have to earn that trust of the community to keep the community from turning on you. So, but to do that, you have to be as transparent as possible. Transparency is one of those words, right, that we use quite a bit. But at the end of the day, it's the truth. Like, we work for you guys as taxpayers. We don't need to hide anything from anybody. Be open, be an open book, be as transparent as possible, and don't hide anything, right, at all. If you do that, it's simple. Just keep it simple, right, and you'll keep that trust of the community.
Well, I think you can see really how the defund the police program is going in Austin right now with record retirement and people leaving their jobs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You just said community respect. Don't you think that the community might have lost some of the respect?
So I worked in Austin and I retired from there I did 23 years there at the Austin Police Department. So I've lived the defunding. The community as a whole, I think, supports law enforcement. There's just a loud, small group of people that make a lot of noise that makes it seem for officers that we don't have that support as a community. But I think as a whole, the folks and the citizens of Austin do support the law enforcement officers. But when you throw politics in there, and there's 3 or 4 certain folks that were politicians in the Austin area that made it their mission to defund the police, and that's exactly what they did. And
well, unfortunately, the loud people vote, right? And the quiet people need to start voting. And I think that what I worry about most is people vote for politics, not policies. And gone are the days of finding out what the candidate stands for versus just having a certain letter by your name. And we touched on this a little bit about Texas State and the students that are there and the effort to get more of these students, college-age students, to understand your policies and basically protecting them and their campus. All over the news, school safety. Just because you're in college, we're not thinking about school safety, right? So how are you going to spearhead, again, using that word, that effort for college safety kids?
You mentioned the letter by your name,
yes,
right? And I think we're closer, we're more alike than we are apart, if you're a Republican or Democrat. But both parties, I think, at the end of the day, want law and order, right? So that's where it needs to start. And that's why I get asked that all the time. Are you Republican or Democrat? Like, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
So I don't like the fact that I have to choose as a sheriff, right? Because when you call 911, I don't say, are you Republican or Democrat before we go, right?
Very true.
And I have a hard time with that. But that's the game that we're in, and I have to choose, and that's okay.
It's funny you should say game, because I was mentioning that to Steve. It is a game, and I said, unfortunately, it's the Game of Thrones right now.
It's funny, though. It's almost like, how come we can't tear that up where there isn't the D and the R, and you can just say, here's my 5 most important policies. Like one of my questions for you is, what's the first 3 things you'll do if you become the Hays County Sheriff? Those are the important things. It's not the R and the D don't really matter. Yeah,
I think there's several probably positions within our political organization that don't need the R or the D or the I. And sheriff, in my opinion, is one of those, right? And I've said that for a long time now, but it is what it is, and I'm going to. I think I'm relatable enough to be able to reach over and cross over to the aisle and get the votes that I need to be the sheriff.
Well, you want to talk about relatable? Like, I see you everywhere, and obviously a lot of people in this community, they hear you on Friday nights, right?
Yes.
So tell me about that. You're football announcing.
Yeah, that was a blast, and I have announced other sports, not only at Dripping Springs, but in other school districts as well over the last couple of years. I started out, my daughter played soccer here at the high school, and so I started announcing the varsity girls soccer games. This past summer, the gentleman that was announcing for the football team decided to retire, and one of the coaches there reached out to the athletic director, and we had conversations, and before you know it, I'm the voice of the Tiger.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's amazing.
You got a good voice for it.
Yeah, those student athletes deserve someone that's going to highlight them as much as possible, the work they put in on a daily basis. So I look forward to it. I have a good time. It's completely voluntary. I don't want to get paid for it. It's I've had coaches reach out, hey, we'll pay you to come here. I'm like, no.
They can pay me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
If anybody wants
Michelle,
to pay me,
you would last one game,
No.
and they were like, "Oh, we can't have her on
I'll
again."
just be his sidekick.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
all
you
I'm
color
going to do.
commentary.
I'm just going to
Yeah.
be like, number 53 has the
Yeah.
ball. And I'm like,
It's a lot of fun. It really is. I do Johnson High School over in Buda. I do their baseball, their varsity baseball for the last couple of years as well.
cool.
So it's a lot of fun.
Sounds like you're really involved in the community in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's important, right? And I don't do it for any other reasons, and that's my passion, right? I love volunteering. I love getting out there and serving, and that's what leaders need to do, right?
I want to go back to my question, and I'm going to ask it as a question now. If you do win the election and you get into office, what's the first 3 things you'll do? What do you change?
So one of the first things that Sheriff Cutler told me was, it's not if, it's when you are elected.
There you go.
there you go.
But yeah, that's a great question. And again, I think it's about the people inside the walls of the sheriff's office. I didn't know what to expect when I got hired there in September of 2021, but I've been amazed every time I walk through those buildings and I see the passion, the dedication the men and women have. And it's not just the sworn. We have the civilian employees within the sheriff's office make up a big part of it, and they make it go, right? So the passion they all have, that just increases my why. So for me, the first thing I want to do is invest into them, right? Invest and establish that culture.
Into your staff.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
Because when they're happy, they're going to go out there and
They do a better
perform.
job.
It's just right.
Right, Steve? When
Yes.
Michelle's happy,
Yes.
everybody's happy.
It's so hard to keep you happy.
Yeah, so and that's why I came in like I did at the sheriff's office. Sheriff Cutler could have put me anywhere in the organization that he wanted to, but we decided to let me start just like anybody else would, right? So I came in just like a rookie, officer would. No matter, even though I had 23 years of experience, I went through the field training officer program here at the sheriff's office. I had another officer in my car training me how to do things the Hays County way. That was hard for me, right? Because I'd done police work for so long. Having someone with 5 years of experience trying to tell me how to be a police officer, but it was a benefit for me because there was a lot of things that I didn't know because it had been a while since I've been on patrol. But that's why I came in like I did. I went through the field training. I worked nights. I mean, I hadn't worked nights in many, many years. So staying up past midnight was a chore for several months. But
Staying up past 9 probably was a chore.
yeah, it still is for sure. But by doing that, I've earned the respect of probably 99% of the troops there inside the sheriff's office. So that's my first priority is going after them and making them feel valued, because again, when they are feel valued and they're happy, they're going to go out on the streets and take those 911 calls the way they're supposed to take them and provide better service. Right.
So when you've done that, what'll be the second and third thing?
Yeah. So public safety is my top priority, right? Everybody deserves to be able to walk around and walk their streets of their neighborhood without fear of anything happening to them. And Hays County is obviously sandwiched in between Bexar County, San Antonio, and Travis County and Austin. So the criminal element, and we have I-35 that runs up and down. So the criminal element that passes through our county on a daily basis is enormous, right? It's just a major highway, right?
Yeah.
So people come to Hays County to commit crimes. But my priority is to try to keep this county as safe as it possibly can be. And I will do everything in my power to be able to do that. And going back to my troops, that's a huge way of doing that because they're so happy to come to work. They're recruiting more people. We're getting more people out on the streets, and we're keeping the county as safe as possibly can be.
So will you condone or give me permission if you become sheriff to stand on the corner of 290 with a hair dryer and pretend like I'm radaring? I have your endorsement. Your silence means your endorsement.
You can sit in your little lawn chair and pretend like you're radaring
That's
people
right.
as they go by.
I love it. 12 and 290. That's one of the busiest intersections out here, right? So a lot of our wrecks out here happen within that 1 mile stretch on either side of 290. So
I think in Dripping Springs, we're a little insulated from that crime that you're talking about on that I-35 corridor. I know crime has increased in Dripping Springs, but it has not increased. It's probably increased the most right along that corridor, right?
Yeah, just because of the major highway.
Yeah,
right?
and what kind of crimes are you seeing? What are the top couple that have increased?
So I would say that Hays County as a whole is a pretty safe county, right? Specifically out here in Dripping Springs, our major issues are more along the lines of property crime.
Yeah, that was one of my questions that I had from a community. It's about the property crime here in Dripping. Yeah,
it's construction theft, it's burglaries, it's stuff like that happens. But the good news is the stranger on stranger type crimes throughout the county is next to nil. So that's a beautiful thing.
Oh,
right?
that is good.
And we have to keep it that way, right? I grew up in this county and I want to keep it, although we're growing, I want to keep that small county feel as well too.
Yeah, that's great. What do you think are going to be the biggest issues facing law enforcement in Hays County? Well, what are they now, and what are they going to be in the future, say 10 years from now?
So you can drive around this community and see help wanted signs all over the place, right? So that we're no different. Law enforcement has been that way for several years now. Okay. Being able to recruit, being able to retain folks, and find quality people. We get people that apply all the time, but we're just not going to hire folks that aren't qualified to do the job. I personally would rather work short on the street than have someone that's not quality that will represent the sheriff's office in the right way, right? So that's the biggest issue, right? Is recruiting.
Lack of personnel.
Yes.
How many openings do you think there are at the sheriff's department right now for qualified officers?
I think we have 498 budgeted positions.
Would I get a badge? Would I get a badge?
Oh my God. I got goosebumps. I'm like, oh my God, Michelle with a badge.
You're deputized.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is that officers or is that's civilian?
That's civilian. That's also counting our corrections at the jail. Okay. So we have law enforcement wise, we have 20 open positions right now.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, in a small agency.
Yeah,
like
how
this.
many deputies are there total, you think?
We're about 150-ish or so.
Really? So that's a huge percentage.
Yeah, so we're short 20, and then in the jail alone, we're about 38 positions short.
Wow.
One of the questions that I have from the community is, I'm just going to read it straightforward. Yeah. What are your thoughts on starting a Dripping Springs Police Department due to the high volume of calls in Dripping? Or will he hire more officers to help with these issues?
Yeah, so that issue is talked about, I think, on a yearly basis between the city council, the mayor, and Sheriff Cutler. And the city of Dripping Springs itself is not big enough to support a police department right
Bill
now.
Folds, when we had the mayor on, he mentioned that.
Yeah, so that's one of the issues, right? So for me, I think we had about 33% of our calls in 2022 happened out here in Dripping Springs. And when I say Dripping Springs.
For Hays County?
Yeah. So that's from Henley, the county line, to the Travis County line at Nutty Brown Road.
Okay.
That's all of Driftwood, all of Dripping Springs.
Okay. So
basically to the 4 lanes on 12.
Okay.
That's the Driftwood area.
That's a pretty big area.
That's a big area. So we had about 33% of our calls happened in that particular area.
Okay.
I forget your question. Sorry.
It was about the police officers in Dripping, having a police department in Dripping.
I think that's going to be more determined by the city of Dripping than it is by the sheriff's
Well, it just kind of goes back to what you were talking about, short staffing.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is. We're supposed to have 4 deputies that work that area 24 hours a day.
Okay.
And we're probably at 2 most of the time, maybe 3. So the deputies out here don't have a lot of time to be proactive. Their focus is on the 911 calls. That
responding to calls, yeah.
And that doesn't leave a lot of free time for them to make traffic stops, for them to do proactive police work, to do community policing.
Yeah. What kind of 911 calls are you guys getting?
The range.
Is it?
The countywide, it's a range, anywhere from property crimes to person crimes to nuisance crimes, noise.
So if somebody breaks into somebody's car, if somebody goes out and their car's broken into, do you guys respond to that? I know Austin is not responding to stuff like that anymore.
Austin is not responding to a lot right now, unfortunately, because of the defunding, and they're just shorthanded. But yes, if you call 911 or our non-emergency line for a car break-in or someone broke into your house,
or crazy lady on the corner with a hairdryer.
The Hays County Sheriff's Office is your primary responding agency if you call 911. That is who coming. During the day, Monday through Friday, we're supported by the constable's office out here. They do an amazing job of helping us with crashes and some other things. They're, I think, fully staffed, and they have a traffic unit as well, so they help us out tremendously with the traffic.
So I wanted to ask you about that relationship. You guys you seem to work very well together, but what exactly is that relationship? Or is it just that you guys are 2 agencies that work hand in hand very well, or is there some kind of official tie-in?
There's not really an official tie-in. We're two completely different agencies, although we work for the same county.
Okay.
With two different jobs, even though we're all police officers at the end of the day, right? Their focus is more of security for the court, an extension of the security for the court, and civil services as well.
Okay.
So they do civil papers and stuff like that, but they're peace officers, and they can go out and do the same things that we can do as deputies, and they've been a tremendous asset for us. So that relationship, not only with Precinct 4, but other precincts throughout the county, has to be there.
Okay.
Right?
I have a very, very important question. I need you to debunk an old wives' tale.
Let's do it.
Is there a ticket quota at the end of the month?
Well, that's a good question.
That is a good question. Thank you for asking that. No, there is not a ticket quota.
Okay.
It's illegal for quotas to be given. So no, there's no quota.
Does crying help you get out of the ticket? That's the other question.
No.
Okay.
It doesn't if you're a man, but it might if you're a woman. No, I forgot my question now.
I wanted to piggyback on the lack of police officers that we're kind of seeing just kind of across the nation right now.
Yep.
Somebody had a question, our community, and you may not know enough about this project, but with the lack of officers, they're curious to know about your thoughts regarding the planned Fitzhugh concert development that is going on. So I think that a lot of people in the community are really concerned about we're going to have a large mass of people that are going to be drinking, and that trout wine and Fitzhugh, it's just so dangerous already anyways. Very similar
What's
to
your
when
thoughts on that?
Yeah, when Nutty Brown was having their concerts and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts on that, if you have an opinion?
Well, growth is coming. Right. And
Amen.
It is, I hate the saying, I guess it is what it is, but there's nothing as a sheriff's office we can do to stop that. So it's incumbent on us to embrace it and try to work with developers and whoever else is bringing these venues in to make sure they are safe as possible. We talk to them about safety and security and exit routes, ingress, stuff like that, to make sure if there's an active incident or active attacker, they have a plan as well. So as a sheriff's office, we just have to work with people that are bringing these venues in.
Yeah.
It is going to increase traffic on Fitzhugh. It is going to bring probably some crime, because these folks look for, it's a crime of opportunity.
Easy targets. Sure. Yeah.
So when there's 5,000 extra cars parked on Fitzhugh, there are going to be folks from Austin coming in to look to break into the car. So we'll see an uptick, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there'll be some good.
I'm going to have a hot dog food trailer there. I'm going to sell a lot of hot dogs.
Good call.
I'm gonna use that to segue, because you talked about attackers. What's your feelings? There's a huge debate going on in this country right now about gun control especially in schools, versus putting armed officers inside campuses. Any comment on that?
Well, what I will say is that the Hays County Sheriff's Office, we run the school resource officer program we have deputies throughout the county that work in the middle schools as well as the high schools throughout the county. And they're amazing, invaluable resources. They're not there to put your kids in jail, although at some point, we have to do that at some point, but that's not our goal. That's not our mission to go out and arrest kids. Their job is to be that invaluable resource.
This is the SRO officer that's on campus. Yep. And so what exactly is their job in relation? And do they work in concert with you guys? Oh,
they're Hays County deputies.
Okay.
If I wanted to be a school resource, I would just have to put in transfer paperwork to go do that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. They're deputies. So if they're done working at school resource officer, they can come out and work patrol.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So we're same department, same agency, same rank.
Why wouldn't you have those same kind of officers at an elementary school, considering that the number, it's pretty obvious that schools for these crazy individuals are considered soft targets. So why wouldn't you protect all campuses?
That's a great question. And I think at the end of the day, that's our goal, is to try to get a school resource officer at every school. But there's always hiccups, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, it comes down to staffing and funding. Like some districts don't want that, because I think they pay like 75% of the officer's salary.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So there are communities, like in Wimberley, They only have 2 elementary schools, so there's an SRO at both elementary schools. And I've talked to many parents out here in Dripping Springs that would be in favor of funding that.
Absolutely,
And
I think it's paramount.
Yes, and I'm 100% behind
Well,
that as
you're
well.
a father. Both your girls go to DSISD, and that was kind of one of the questions I saw. Saw a little quip that said by 2028 we're going to have a 42% increase in enrollment in DSISD. And what I don't understand is why are schools not locked down like banks? I used to do safety and security audits for Texas State. My father and I actually practically created the program. I audited over 700 schools in the state of Texas. And this was right on the cusp of all of this school violence, things that were going on. And I also did intruder assessments for schools. It was amazing to me. I've talked about this before with Steve and on the podcast. It was amazing to me how easy it was for me to get into a school. And 9 times out of 10, the super or the principal would say, well, you don't look like,
isn't
an
that
offending a
funny?
parent. And I would say, but do I look like I'm dating the offending parent or the non-custodial parent? I mean, just because I don't look like your perpetrator, and I could get in every single time. I had 100% success rate. I would get in, I would take a child from a classroom because a lot of times the names were right outside the classroom. And I would say, okay, I would get him 10 feet away from the school. Like, oh, run to that bench and turn around and come back. And it was amazing to me how easy it was.
I'm surprised your ass didn't end up in jail.
You know what? So the super knew what I was doing, but I actually got the local police called on me several times, but then it actually kind of changed our audits where we were like, look, please let them know what we're doing, but don't let the other teachers know.
And that still happens today, right? The school safety center, they do audits throughout the state. So
they're mandated,
So they'll send somebody to the high school here in Dripping Springs and see what they can do, what
they're
they can't do.
unfunded mandates.
Yes.
Yeah.
So obviously law enforcement has changed tremendously in even just the last couple of years, but the last decade it's changed tremendously. What kind of ongoing training are you guys doing to keep up with all these changes, things that are happening?
Yeah, so we're required to do a certain amount of, I guess in the real estate word, CE classes,
Okay.
right? And it's the same way. Our license is carried by the state of Texas, and we're required to do certain classes every year, right? So that's how we do that.
Okay.
But we also go out and seek outside training as well. So we were talking about the school shooter, active attackers. Like last week, I was at a 3-day school, and all we did was how are we going to respond to an active attack.
Did you see the video of the response in Nashville?
I did. Amazing.
What did you? That's what I thought.
100% amazing.
Comparative
That should
to
be a
Uvalde.
training video,
Yeah.
shouldn't it?
Yeah, I was in that class when that shooting happened, and the next day we all watched the video.
Yeah.
And we had done that same exact training the day before.
Yeah.
And we're trained here in Hays County to do solo response. So if we get there, if we have a shooting, God forbid, at the high school, and I get there first, I'm going in. Right. Our priority is to stop the killing.
Right.
Right. And so that's what we're trained to do. And,
Wow. That sounds so stressful to me. It's like in concept it doesn't, but if you think about your hand on the door and you're hearing gunfire inside a school and there's children in there, that sounds so stressful to
Well,
me.
that's where he's dedicated his life to protect and
I
to
know,
serve.
I know. And that's
yeah.
why I wish the public would think about that. Put yourself in that position. You're the one that opens that door and runs in towards the gunfire. I can't even imagine
He's running
how that
towards,
feels.
not running from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also on the subject of guns, there's a lot of people here that are concealed carry. Open carry. What is your suggestion when there's a traffic stop? And I know that, I went through the training and it told me, but
I've wondered about that.
if I'm carrying a gun in my car, walk me through that process if I've been stopped for speeding.
Yeah, what I tell everybody, whether you have a gun or not, try to make that officer or deputy as comfortable as possibly can be. Traffic stops are the most dangerous thing that any law enforcement personnel will do. We don't know who we're stopping, right? We could be stopping you because your tail light is out.
Sure.
But we could also be stopping.
Because I had a body in my trunk.
That's
Did
right.
I say that out loud?
And that's happened.
Again.
And that's happened, right? So we could be stopping you for a minor infraction and not knowing that you're wanted for murder in New York, right? So that's the unknown, right? So I tell people, try to make that officer feel as comfortable as possible. Pull off in a safe place and put your hands on the steering wheel and don't move until he gets up there, right? He or she gets up there.
Put the window down.
And I tell specifically my kids as well, when I talk to young folks, put the windows down, all 4 of them.
Oh, okay.
Turn on the, if it's at night, turn on your dome light, interior light, and don't make any furtive movements to where, don't even go grab your insurance. Don't even grab your license or your cell phone out of your pocket. Just wait till the officer gets up there. And if you do have a gun, say officer or Deputy Hipolito, I do have a gun. It's in my console. That's where my insurance is at. Do you want me to grab it? And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to tell you, no, don't grab it. I can go find your insurance on my computer.
Interesting.
I appreciate when people tell me if they have a weapon or not, because that puts me at ease. You're telling me, right, that you have it. So that's what I suggest is keep your hands on the window or on the steering wheel, roll down all the windows, turn your dome light on if it's at night, and tell the officer or the deputy if you have a weapon. That way we know what we're dealing with.
I don't think that's talked about enough. We have these kids that they're seeing on social media that if a police officer pulls you over, or if a police officer stops you, then automatically the police officer's in the wrong, and you have every right to bow up against that. And we weren't raised that way.
No.
You know, we respect law enforcement because it is a difficult job.
Yeah, I talked to the Young Men's Service League, the 9th grade. Speaking of Leslie Rohde, she invited me to come talk to her group on Sunday. And we talked about driving. We talked about what are you going to do when a cop pulls you over? Here's how you act. No matter if the officer is rude or being belligerent or treating you the wrong way, never argue on the side of the street. My phrase is comply and then complain later.
And shut your mouth.
Yeah.
That's it. Just because you're never going to win an argument on the side of the road. It's
a very stressful situation.
Whether you believe you're speeding or not, there's a way for you to fight that. And that's not on the side of the street. It's in the courtroom, right? So don't put yourself in a position to lose an argument because you're just not going to win. So if the officer's rude, complain.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's
after the fact.
After the fact. Don't argue. Yep.
Well, and as a follow-up, Steve has a beautiful wife. I'm female. I have a daughter. You have daughters.
I do.
I want to know also, how do I protect myself as a female with just the sex trafficking, the people that are stalking, the following? If your daughters are leaving Target at 9:30 at night, what are you telling them to be aware of their surroundings? And like, how is Holly going to protect herself? How am I, if I'm working late here at the office, what should I be doing to protect myself?
Yeah.
And you said it, you have to be aware of your surroundings these days. And I'm guilty of this. We walk around with our head in our phone.
Yep.
Right. And that's the biggest thing. You have to know where you're at, know the time of day, and know if you're at a place on a regular basis, you know what's supposed to be there and what's not. Right. So leaving your house, you know what cars are parked on the side of the road. Pay attention to those. Just take that the minor things. And if you do that, the chances of you're a victim obviously going to go down.
I had heard that years ago, and I've gotten Holly to do this. You get out of your car, and the first thing you do is do a 360 scan, and you look for anything out of place. Somebody that's standing maybe too close, or somebody that is watching you. And that can probably go 90% of the way to protecting yourself, right?
100%. That's 100%.
Yeah.
I was raised by, my stepfather was a CIA agent, so everybody was a suspect.
Yep.
Everybody. And that's very interesting that you said that about like just kind of noticing your surroundings, because you kind of just get trapped in the everyday trappings of life, and you're just looking at your phone or talking or whatever, and there's somebody that's been watching you.
It's actually creepy when you see that because we go downtown a lot, and we get out of our car, and then I'll do my scan, and I'll be like, well, that guy's not right. And then sometimes we'll get in the car and go park someplace
I think
else.
that every day when you walk in the offise.
I think that about you all the time.
That guy is not right. Do you recommend as a female carrying either taser or what is that stuff?
Mace,
pepper
spray.
Yeah.
I recommend carrying anything that you're comfortable and know how to use.
Yeah.
If you don't train with it, the chances of you being successful in using it, because we all react differently under stress, right? Some of us can't even unlock a door when we're shaking, trying to get out of a door, right? So if you're not proficient in the weapon that you choose to carry, you're probably doing more harm than good.
That's probably true. I know you've been doing some presentations on fentanyl in Hays County. Talk to us about fentanyl real quick.
Yeah, so we have probably done about 55 presentations in about 32 weeks since about the first week of September.
That's crazy.
And we didn't do hardly any in December because we were heavily involved in Brown Santa. But we've done probably about 55 presentations and talked to about 6,000 people in that time frame. And we're prioritizing Hays County, but fentanyl is just not a Hays County issue. So if somebody asks outside of the county, we go.
But it's here, though, right?
100%.
And do you think these kids are getting it? That it's here. It's in your backyard. It may not be like in Austin's, like the way it is.
And are they buying it intentionally, or is it popping up and they're not suspecting it?
So both.
Okay.
So both. So fentanyl today is in almost every illicit street drug that's out there. So if you're taking or snorting cocaine these days, the chances of fentanyl being in it are pretty high.
Can I ask? Okay, just layman's terms.
Yep.
The fentanyl. Why is it in the cocaine? Are they cutting it or?
It's cheaper, right?
Yeah. So the Chinese started this several years ago. They started making the illicit fentanyl, and it's synthetic, right? So you don't have to rely on the poppy plant at all. Right, you don't have to worry about the weather. You don't have to worry about manual labor. Folks get into the fields to work that. It's all made synthetically. So what the Mexican cartel has done, they have teamed up with the Chinese because they saw how profitable fentanyl is. So they now get the precursor chemicals from Mexico and India, and they make the pure illicit fentanyl powder in Mexico.
Wow.
They're still making the cocaine, the heroin, the methamphetamines, and several other things as well. But they make the fentanyl because it's a lot cheaper for them to make, and they still make just as much, if not more money right now. So,
wow.
Yep. And what we're seeing in Hays County specifically is it's all illicit counterfeit pills. They can make a Percocet that, like a Percocet you'd get at the Dripping Springs Pharmacy. They can make it look identical.
We had heard a story, actually, it might have been from you. I think it was from you, Anthony, where a child or a high school kid, I think it was, bought a pill that was fentanyl and split it in half to share with his girlfriend.
Yep.
And they both took half of the pill, and it turns out there was fentanyl in it, but it was like the majority of it was in one side of the pill because they're not processed properly. And one of them died. Is that right? One of them was hospitalized.
She did die, but the first responders were able to get there and revive her using Narcan. But yeah, essentially she died in his arms, right?
Wow.
So, and that's the thing. These 6 out of every 10 of these illicit counterfeit pills have enough fentanyl to kill anybody.
God, jeez.
Because they make them so fast, and they're not made, by
they're
chemists,
not.
right?
There's no laboratory standards or anything.
They make them so fast. They don't care where the fentanyl is in the pill. They don't care how much is in there, or they don't even care if there's fentanyl at all in it.
Yeah,
because they're still getting your money.
Sure. Mm-hmm. What can parents do to protect their kids?
You as parents know your kids as better than anybody, right? You have to have a relationship with your kids, right? You have to know their day in and day out, what their baseline is, right? If you start noticing their grades plummeting, they're losing a bunch of weight or gaining a bunch of weight, their friend groups are changing. There's a variety of things as parents that you can pick up that may trigger something in your mind. Say, hey, I need to check on little Johnny. I need to watch him or her a little bit closer to make sure they're not making that decision. I don't think kids these days take these drugs so much. Like in our day, it was more, for fun, to be curious, to experiment.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think that's the case anymore. It may be a little bit, but the mental health crisis in this country
it's huge.
It's huge.
We were talking about that earlier too, about the mental health crisis, and I wanted to also ask you about the vape pens, the Delta 8, the Delta 9, and how they're so very similar now to the nicotine. And what is Hays County's position on, I can't even think of the terminology right now. I was trying to think of the terminology. The small, like if they're caught with if someone is caught with a small individual use marijuana or a Delta 8 or Delta 9, what is Hays County's general position on that?
Yeah. So a lot of the times, specifically the kids, they don't know that that's a felony to have those THC vape pens. So I
didn't know that.
Because it's the concentration, right?
It's the concentration. Okay. We, with the schools, and when I think with the school resource officers, do they work with the administration? And again, we don't want to put kids in the system, specifically their first time. So a lot of times they'll get like a ticket instead of going to jail, and they'll work with the administration. They'll send them to ISS or a school for 30 days. But the vape pens are so prevalent not only here, in every high school in this
Is
country.
Delta, one of them just became illegal again? Like it was legal and then it was illegal. I think it was like the Delta 9, I think is what I was
I think
reading.
the Delta 8 stuff is, the concentration is below the 0.03%.
Yes, and then
right?
I think the Delta 9 was, but then they changed it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can buy those online and they're legal in the state of Texas. So, yeah.
That's still crazy to me is that that drugs are they're so accessible nowadays, and it's not just like the creepy skater kid behind the high school selling.
What you just said is that not the kids aren't just experimenting; they're actually like leaning on these drugs to get through their day because of all the stresses that.
And I think, and I talk about that in my presentation. I want to figure out why. Let's figure out why you're deciding to take the drug.
Sure.
Right? Are you getting bullied
Sure.
at school?
Yeah.
And social media is another issue. Your parents getting divorced, you have a death in the family, your boyfriend or girlfriend broke up with
Yeah.
you. There's a variety of things that cause stress. I think the kids today deal with a ton more stress than we had to deal
That's
with.
amazing. An amazing approach, though, Anthony, is to go out and find the why. I mean,
For
look,
sure,
we're dealing with the here and now, but let's also find out the why so that the next kid we're not dealing with
because it's
this.
not. Everybody said, well, he's a druggie or he's a bad kid.
Yeah.
And that's fentanyl specifically affects it knows no demographic, right? It has touched every portion of Hays County from Dripping to San Marcos over to Butte, Kyle. And again, it's not because at the end of the day, they're trying to cope with something, right? So I like to go to the gym when I get stressed out.
Yeah.
Kids these days, and even adults, they lean on alcohol or these prescription
We're
drugs.
seeing that a lot more. Yeah.
Steve runs. I make fun of Steve for running.
That's
it's
right.
just a full circle.
It is a
kind
circle
of stress
of life.
It's a stress relieving kind of thing. That's
Well, Anthony, how do you deal with stress? It sounds very stressful being a police officer. How do you deal with that?
Yes, you don't realize how much stress that not only officers but all first responders have to deal with. Everybody deals with stress a lot differently, right? So throughout my 24-year plus career, I've made it a point to be in the gym, be on the treadmill, or I like to run. I like to lift weights, and that's the way I deal with stress. Not only work stress, but home stress and campaign stress and everything else, right? So
buckle up, buttercup.
So that's the way I deal with stress. But everybody deals with it a little bit different. And if you lean on the drugs, let's figure out how we can help that, right? So
my sister-in-law is a counselor, and we were talking last week and a half or so ago about that exercise is actually more effective in countering depression and mental illness than a lot of the drugs that are just popped out over the counter. So if you can get into something an outlet, a physical outlet that's good for you versus leaning on these drugs or alcohol, it'd be great.
Yeah, even going out for a walk, at night.
It doesn't take much.
How better it makes you feel.
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes of moving your body can make a huge difference in how you feel.
Yeah, so every day I wake up at 5 a.m. and I go to the gym here at any time.
You and me were brothers.
Steve's not a drug pusher. He's a exercise.
I am an exercise pusher. I'm a big believer in it.
I told him that I look like this naturally. It would not be fair to other people if I worked out.
I love it.
Lucky you. How can people find out more about your campaign, Anthony?
I appreciate that. So I have a Facebook page, Anthony Hipolito for Hays County Sheriff. You guys have seen that, I believe. And then my website is hipolitoforsheriff.com. You can learn a lot more about me there. So yeah, those are the two avenues. And I'll also have an Instagram page, and I think my daughters have finally talked me into a TikTok page.
I was going to say, do you have a TikTok? Okay,
I do. And I let I have a senior at Dripping Springs, and I let her kind of manage it. I've only had it for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's a Pandora's box.
Yes.
We were just talking about TikTok before you got here, and the ban on TikTok and how everybody's spying on you. And so just get over it. And when I say that I've done research, I've literally watched a 30-second video on TikTok.
But the young folks are on it, right? The college kids.
Yeah, it's true. You got to be
vital for my campaign to get on there to reach everybody.
Absolutely.
Can people email you on your on these websites
you can.
ask you questions about your stance on things?
Absolutely. hipolitoforsheriff@gmail.com is, but that's also on my webpage as well.
Okay.
My wife runs my campaign. She's amazing. Right now, she's my campaign manager, and we have our first event coming up at the Salt Lake on April 27th.
Okay.
It's open to the public.
What time?
It's at 6:30. That's at the Pecan Grove Pavilion, right next to the Salt Lake. It's all connected there, but
Is
That's our
that
first week.
invitation only, or is that anybody can show up?
It is open to the public. It's a $50 suggested donation, but I promise you, if you cannot donate $50, you're welcome to come on in. So it's free and open to everybody.
I have a question. You mentioned your wife, and as we're closing, I wanted to know: do you have a ritual when you leave the house? Is there something that you do every single time when you leave the house? Because you have a very dangerous job.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's very evident that your family is probably the most important thing to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so would you share that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a ritual. I guess it is. It's a habit. You always give the wife a kiss, and tell her you love her. I don't I leave before my kids wake up, but I tend to just to peek in on them, just to say bye, right? Mm-hmm. Luckily, I'm not on patrol where I take those 911 calls right now. But I'm a deputy. I'm a law enforcement officer. So if duty calls and if I happen to be driving past something, I'm going to respond, right? Just because I'm not a patrol deputy,
right?
So there's always that chance, right? And I've been doing it for 24 years, so I try not to think about that, right?
Yeah.
I just go and do my job the way I'm supposed to do it, and my goal and every goal of every officer is to get home at the end of the shift, right? That's your only goal.
And we're very lucky to have someone like you in Hays County that cares about us as much as you care about your family. And I've been very honored to be able to sit here and chit chat with you and
cares about the law enforcement officers.
Absolutely.
Also, because you realize that if those law enforcement officers are taken care of, then the population is better taken care of.
And that's our goal at the end of the day, right? Is to make everybody happy as possibly can be, and
as safe as possible,
and as safe. And our community is our eyes and ears, and we have to have that relationship. We have to collaborate. We have to work together. And if we do that, this county will remain as safe as it possibly can be.
And I'll let you leave it with, or we'll leave it with your elevator speech of why should we hire you?
Why should you hire me? Again, I've been in law enforcement for 24 years, and I absolutely adore and love cops and first responders. And my goal is to serve them as best as possible. And we mentioned it, the community. I grew up in Hays County. I've been here since 1985, and I love this community. And that's one of the reasons I decided to retire in Austin when I did, because I wanted that opportunity to start here. I wanted to get in the weeds and to learn about the department, learn more about the community. And I am the guy that will lead this department or office forward starting January 1st of 2025. My goal, and I think I will, keep this county as safe as possible and be able to work and reach across the aisle, no matter if I'm Republican or Democrat, because safety is for everybody and law and order is for everybody. So, so that's it.
Wow.
Man, we wish you the best of luck in your campaign. And the time you spent here, I didn't know you very well, but everything I've heard, it sounds like you deserve our vote.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, ignorance is bliss. I have no idea what I'm getting into.
I don't think you do.
Political on the political side, but at the end of the day, if I can't win this race on what I have to offer and what I can give and provide for this county, then that's okay.
Yeah. And I asked you about people emailing you instead of somebody coming out and protesting and not knowing you. If they could have a conversation with you, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable about who they vote for.
I've offered that to some activists here in Hays County that have already started with the Facebook keyboard warriors. Way to do it. And I'm like, you've never met me, sir. Let's go have a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Well, I think they're going to feel a lot different after listening to this podcast. You've made a good case.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Very gracious, Anthony.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Anthony Hipolito. Thanks for listening, everybody.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallett Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at mallettintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't ya? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.